Welcome to the fourth and final installment in the Charles Berglund series, where in the first three installments, we've had a chance to listen to Charles discuss his memories and experiences being on a heavy cruiser, the USS New Orleans, during World War II, and also being in the post-war Navy, and then finally the Cold War on nuclear submarines. In this final installment, we're going to hear more about those memories, so you're going to want to buckle up and enjoy.
Went back to the States. Again, we got back to New London, then we got sent out another war patrol up along Russia, Vladivostok, and that area. Not Vladivostok, but Murmansk, up in that area there. And that's where we had a little collision. After about 40 days up there, taking pictures and operating in their submarine pens and things like that, listening. It was a very, very interesting trip.
Well, I mean, how much can you tell us about the collision? How much damage you guys sustained?
There's quite a bit of damage to the scopes. One scope, radar mast, radio antenna, stuff like that.
And this may sound like a silly question, but I have to ask.
But nothing structurally damaged to the submarine itself. It would, sink it or anything like that.
But I'm assuming you could hear the collision throughout the boat or not?
Oh yeah. I was sleeping at the time.
So what was going
But I'll tell you, I was sleeping when it hit. It just rolled the submarine over, And then it came back, and then the collision alarm sounded, and we took off for Norway, North Cape. Went in there and stayed a little while, and then we headed back to the States.
Well, how long after the collision? How long did it take after the collision before you guys realized, okay, we're going to be okay? I mean,
right away. You'd know right away if something very serious had happened. It's.
You must have heard all the stories, even though you were asleep when it happened. But they did know the Soviets.
We were actually trailing this submarine to see where it was going to go. That's one of the things that we were supposed to do, is follow and see where their operating area was at. So that's what we were doing, and somehow or other, I never was explained to me how this submarine turned around and came back and hit us.
It's called a crazy Ivan. Dude, they're following this sub. They're in the Soviet Union submarine pens.
That's what blows my mind is, the cojones of these guys, like, hey, what do you hold my beer? Let's go.
Right, exactly.
Let's go. I'm going in.
We're not just going to patrol out in front of the shipping lanes where these things come out. We're just going to go right where the submarines are, and we're going to spy on them and take pictures. And that's how they figured out when new models and types of subs were becoming available.
How in the world were the Soviets so asleep at the switch that they just didn't suspect that? That's amazing to me.
Yeah, I wonder how many stories the Soviet have about our installations.
Well, yeah,
I don't know. Here's what I do know. I know that throughout the Cold War, our technology was generally always a step ahead of theirs. To this day, our subs, well, especially to this day, our subs are much, much quieter than theirs in the endurance. And the Russians built amazing subs, but our subs were always a little quieter, a little just higher quality. I don't know how to put it. We use rubber bushings on things and all that. So, maybe the Russians didn't have the technology to go into, like Bath, Maine, into our naval yards, or maybe all that stuff is sitting over declassified and they did it as well. But I do know this, the more we hear about these submariners during the Cold War, the more we hear and learn that these sort of things, these collisions and whatnot, kind of happen more routinely than people realized.
One of the guys that I interviewed whenever we lived in Houston and everything was a gentleman who was the commander of the nuclear submarine, the USS Kavala. And he talked about, at the time, he was the commander of the sub, a nuclear sub. And this was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And they were trailing Russian subs heading down to Cuba. And, and I asked him, like, how did you know I mean, how did you know you were, he said we could tell by the sound of their screws in the water, their propellers. They had a certain, signature to them that they could use to follow them and everything. And the Russians didn't know the entire way. Well, they assume that they didn't know that they were behind them and trailing them.
And for those who've watched the movie Hunt for Red October or read the book, a lot of that technology is dated now, but everything in there is exactly what we developed over time. When that movie came out in the 90s, it was showing how we were using computers, machine learning, and neural networks to be able to template match the sound of different screws to the catalog of other screws that we would listen to and save in these computers. It was like machine learning and AI before back then, back in the 80s, maybe
which
even
tells
late
you
70s.
something, which tells you something, doesn't it?
What are they doing now?
Well, what was interesting to me, though, about that story I just told was that they were following these subs because they knew that the nuclear weapons would be launched from the subs primarily. And we were lying in wait just in case that happened. I would hope that we would be taking the sub out before they launched the weapon. So it was interesting to me to hear that we weren't necessarily at the full mercy of what the Russians or the Soviets would do. We had deterrence also.
And I think for the attack subs, which is what the Skate was, it wasn't a nuclear missile sub. I think that was their primary job, was to go look for submarines that could launch missiles, stay on their ass, and just keep track of them in case they needed to do something like that. And I think the United States Navy did a damn good job of that during the Cold War, as far as from the things that have been declassified that I've had a chance to read. So
awesome.
All right, so we'll move on to and the collision part. So Ryan, didn't you say that you could? Yeah.
Okay, so I was doing research on the USS Skate, and I Tony always sends, Tony and I share a spreadsheet of the clips and what the highlights are of the clips, what we're going to talk about. And one of the things I noticed is said the USS Skate collided with a Soviet sub. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm doing research. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't find any information about this supposed collision with the USS Skate and a Soviet sub. I believe it happened.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't think that it has made it into public consciousness yet through declassified reports. So it's pretty interesting that you're hearing it here first.
You certainly are. And there's no doubt in my mind, I know, Ron, you feel the same way, that this happened. So it definitely shows the limitations of the Freedom of Information Act.
That's right. All right. Should we move on?
We should, because now he's going to move on to another nuclear boat. And this one is pretty historic.
Well, anyway, after that, we went home again, and that's when I got transferred to the commission. I was transferred to the George Washington, first nuclear boat. And then...
could you explain the differences between the Skate and the George Washington?
Oh, yeah. The Skate was what they call a fast attack boat. Torpedoes, things like that. Or the nuclear missile boats, had torpedoes, but they also carried missiles. Well, the George was the first missile boat, and what it was originally the USS Scorpion. So what they did to expedite things, instead of having to start all over again in construction, because there's hurry, we had to get them out there. They cut the Scorpion in two and added 212 feet missile section to it. Welded it all back up, and so you had a missile boat.
And so it was much larger.
Oh yeah, it was large. I forget the exact 4,600 and some feet, something like that.
And what sort of, how different were the missions in the GW versus the Skate?
Skate was always fast attack, doing, like we were Cold War type stuff, this type of stuff, and also, fleet maneuvers and attack. Missile boat, secret type stuff. You go to an area. You have an area to operate. You do nothing but do this, operate in this particular area.
So your job was just to be there.
You just be there in case you're ready to launch the missiles.
How was the life on the sub, the day-to-day life, different from the earlier diesel electric subs to the Skate to the nuclear?
Oh gosh,
sub?
the old the old conventional boats on patrol or on 1 shower a week, you know,
Yeah.
that type of stuff, kind of, you know, sponge bath, things like that. Diesel smell, smell nothing but diesel. I know I used to come home, I'd get on a bus to go home, you know, I'd sit in the seat, you know. I mean, your clothes were clean and stuff, but that oil would just saturate into your clothing. And you sit in the seat, you know, somebody come in and sit down next to you, you know, and it wouldn't take them long to get up and move. But anyway, it's yeah.
What about on the GW? What sort of?
Well, that was all nuclear, you know, and nuclear power. That was great, you know. All the showers you wanted. They had washing machines on there to do clothes.
Probably more room.
Oh yeah, much more room.
What
Yeah,
was the food like?
great. We ate great, even on the conventional
Do
boats.
you remember Dad being a little heavier at that time?
It was great.
And how long were the patrols? You would never surface in the GW,
On the
right?
GWR, it was 60-day patrol.
Okay.
60 days. And it went pretty fast because you were busy all the time. You had watches, you know. Of course, we had, you know, doing the primary chemistries for the reactor and things like that, plus your medical duties. There were 3 of us. And because we had 8-hour watches.
Well, I mean, have you expanded on that a little bit? On previous boats, you were the medical officer only. Now
On the
you're-
conventional boat, I had no watches.
Okay.
But when you got on the nuclear boats, you had to, because you had atmosphere control, chemistries on the reactor, and things like that, surveys and things, besides your medical stuff.
How long would you be on watch?
Yeah, we took 8-hour watches on that.
And so your job was, for you, was to look at make sure that the reactor was responding well.
Well, yeah, the chemistries and things like that, water chemistries on it to see if everything was normal, radiation surveys, see if there's any leakages, this sort of thing.
What I didn't appreciate is when you're on these subs, a nuclear sub, maybe it was like that with Skate. It was all hands on deck. He's the medical officer, but he was responsible for an 8-hour shift to literally make sure that the reactor was doing what it was supposed to do and not poisoning the crew and all that. I had no idea how much of an all hands on deck it was in Rickover's nuclear submarine force.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I mean, it's I've always wondered, you know, how they were able to manage this in such a tight space, you know, and keep it safe for everybody, you know.
Yeah.
But obviously he's an old guy here, you know. I mean, he's survived, you know. It was
Right.
safe enough back then that it wasn't a concern, you know. And one of the things that he mentioned was, you know, what caught my ear was, you know, he said it was the first nuclear boat, but you know, the Skate was nuclear also, but the difference between the 2 subs is one was, like he said, a fast attack. It was armed with just torpedoes. It was an attack sub. This was actually a nuclear ballistic missile sub. It could launch nuclear missiles from the water. So I mean, it was a completely different, you know, type of submarine, and really a new type of ship that we had in our arsenal to carry the nuclear, you know, payload to the enemy.
Yeah, it was part of the nuclear triad. And it wasn't a triad. After World War II, it was a monad. It was the Air Force, right? The Air Force could deliver bombs. And then later, we could put them on missiles, ICBMs. And then once we developed, I think it was the Polaris missile, may have been the first one, that could be launched underwater from a submarine and send nuclear payloads from a submarine to any place in the world. And what made submarines so damn frightening is they would loiter in areas close to the shore. They could fire their missiles underwater, undetected, and the amount of time that you had to respond to this attack was the absolute shortest relative to a bomber or an ICBM.
So Tony, you always talk about how I am afraid of
I knew
submarines. And you know what, bud? Yeah, I'm here for you. I think you've really started to internalize the threat, aren't you?
So do you think I'm going to start getting as neurotic as you are about submarines?
I'm hoping you are. I'm hoping so. I'm out here by myself here, man, talking about submarines, and you're just back over there laughing. So that's okay.
I don't
know. I
know.
get it.
I don't know if we've had an episode yet where you haven't found a way to work in how scary submarines are. It
Hey, they're
doesn't matter
very
what we're talking about.
scary.
They are
I
scary.
I know. I know.
Oh, I can still
Um,
remember you and I were on a road trip years ago, and there was a Coldplay song on.
Coldplay. Wait, why are you
Coldplay.
bringing up Coldplay? Is that in the news right now for
I'm
some
telling you,
reason?
I think we've heard a little bit about what Coldplay has done to astronomer. Um, I can't remember the name of the song, but you said to me, Tony, when you listen to this song and you hear the music, doesn't it sound creepy, like a submarine lurking in the water going after prey and all that?
Yeah.
I can't
Yes.
remember which song. It was off the album Parachutes,
It's
but
called Spies.
that's it. That's it. That's the
That's the
song.
song. Yeah.
Yes.
It's got a very somber, kind of dark feeling, like a U-boat surfacing
Yep.
off the coast of England in like February of 43. It just
Yeah.
seems like it's got that kind of weird. Anyway, yep,
It does. So, I mean,
it
I should
does.
have known then that you were on that path, even as a young man. Someday you'll get therapy for it, but for now,
So you brought up the Polaris. I'm
yeah.
going to bring in a metal reference now. Okay. If you've ever heard of the band Megadeth,
Oh yeah.
they've got a song off of their album Rust in Peace called Polaris.
Oh.
And it's all about the Polaris missile and everything. And
Oh.
so, yeah, I mean, if you want to learn a bit about military history, and Dave Mustaine was always very much into nuclear war and the end of civilizations like that. He's got a
Yeah.
song
I,
like that.
I, I think you
That's their best
welcomed it.
album.
It by
Yes.
by far. I think he
Yep.
welcomed this idea that we would all kill each other and he could sit back and watch it happen. But yeah, that's a great album. I did not know that. I'm gonna have to dig
Yes.
into my archives. Maybe I'll
Launch
check it
the
out today.
Polaris. Anyway, that's my Dave Mustaine imitation there. So,
Oh,
okay, we'll move on for those who know what the heck we're talking about.
God. So yeah, so what we'll do, Ryan, is play these next 3 clips in a row, and it's going to talk about how he took all this education from nuclear subs in medical training into the private sector, working in the national labs.
And then I made one patrol, and then I was transferred to Submarine Squadron 10 staff for my last year in the service because I was going to retire.
Okay.
So I spent it there and then looked around for a job and went for interviews. Went to Dayton, Ohio. I didn't like it there because it was called Sinus Gulch and headaches all the time, and it didn't sound good to me. I had a number of job offers, but I finally took the one at Sandia Laboratory. It was even less pay than some of the other ones, but we just liked it there. The wife and I, we've been through there several times and liked New Mexico, wanted to go west. So
And how long did you stay there?
we were at Sandia Labs. I worked there 25 years, a little over 25 years.
And you still live in Albuquerque now?
Still live there. Yeah.
Now, you probably can't tell us who did Sandia, but can you tell us, was it related to the work you
The my nuclear power school, isotope lab, X-ray and all that, I fit right into their health physics group. For, they had 2 reactors out there at the time. They had the ECRR and I forget the name of the other one right offhand. But I fit in right into their health physics department. So got hired right away, went to work. Left the Navy in September 27th, I think it was, in 1962. Hired in out there at October 7th.
I worked at Sandia National Labs as a graduate student. So for those who may not know, I went to grad school at New Mexico Tech in Socorro, and I did all my thesis research at Sandia National Labs, which is listed as a Department of Energy facility. But I'm here to tell you, there was plenty of Department of Defense things going on, and it was pretty impressive. What he probably would have been, you needed a PhD to be a researcher, to go and write articles and come up with grants and that sort of thing. And they had a number of these technicians there. And when I first hired in, I thought the technicians were guys that, knew how to run the machines and all that. And I was wrong. The technicians were the ones who actually made the science happen. When a PhD researcher wanted to do an experiment, he didn't just write the paper. He'd have to sit down with the technician to see if his ideas or her ideas for what they wanted to do were even realizable. Could you even do it? And the technician would help design the experiments, oversee the research, produce the results, help interpret them. They were extremely intelligent individuals. It's a real gift and a blessing that, our country has these national labs. They're still there, with these amazing people working there. And he was one of them. And I thought that was pretty cool
Wow.
to have that conversation with him.
Yeah, obviously a brilliant guy. I mean, to be able to have the career that he had and to work at Sandia, from 62 on was pretty amazing. What an amazing time to be there too.
It is, we're in the next question, next couple of questions. We can probably play them back to back. We kind of go back to, okay, so why exactly did you get out of the subsurface into this private sector? And these next couple of clips I think are pretty interesting.
What sort of effect did your time in the submarine service have on the family in terms of how frequently you would see them?
Towards the last there, it was getting hard because you were never home. When I was on the skate, it was just go, go, go. You might come in, you might be gone, like a month. You come in, and somebody had to stay aboard the boat for a watch. If you hadn't got the watch that weekend, then you were gone again Monday for maybe 2-3 weeks, maybe a month. It's just got to be where you were never home. And then after the Washington, of course, they want you to stay. We'll give you new construction and all that stuff. And
What's that mean, new construction?
a new submarine,
Oh.
a new ballistic boat. But then you had to obligate yourself, like a couple years or something like that. And it was getting time to get out. I needed to get out. It was too much time away from the family. I enjoyed it for some reason or other. I just getting out there.
Yeah.
I really did.
So you remember the sense of adventure more than anything else?
Yeah.
Then?
I think at that time, maybe you feel this way, that when you were growing up, you were much more isolated, like in Little Albert Lea.
Little Albert Lea,
I
I'd never hardly been out of the state.
Yeah.
Been in Iowa because I only lived there about 12 miles from the border, but that when I left Minnesota that time and went out and saw the world, I don't think I ever wanted to go back to Minnesota again to live.
You didn't.
And I didn't.
Just some of the things that I remember, like when we were in New London, and I know you talked about it and you didn't really like it, but one of the visions that I have when we're driving in New London is the big tank.
The
Tell us
submarine
about
rescue
that
tank.
tank.
Oh yeah, that's when you went submarine school. You had to go through this 100-foot tank. What it was is like rescue from a submarine that was sunk, and it had what they call the Momsen lung, which you would fit into your mouth there, and then you could just breathe normal like, and you could go to the surface with it. So they well, they first go in, they take you 15 feet, 50 feet, and then the last run would be down like 100 feet, and they pressurize you to 100 foot of water. And then you go out into the tank and just go on up. It was you got tired at the end of the day, I'll tell you after. It was
How many
tough.
times do you have to do that to qualify?
Well, at submarine school you had to qualify just the one time, but then later went through it again one other time when I was on the Washington.
And that could be dangerous. If I remember correctly, you had to exhale on the way out.
Oh yeah, you had to breathe out all the time, yeah. Otherwise your lungs would explode.
I'm such a
That
dumbass.
could be dangerous.
Going at the bottom of a 100-foot tank full of water, and so this is, audience, this is another example where I was gonna go on to the next clip and I just couldn't. I mean, it's hard to imagine how tall 100 feet is. 100 feet is really tall. Right? We're talking.
Oh
it
yeah,
maybe taller than a water
10
tower.
stories. Yeah.
Totally. And for those who may not know, and I only know this, I've never done it, I just read about it. When you are at the bottom of this and you're trying to escape and go up the water, your job is to release the air in your lungs, to blow it out, because as you go shallower and shallower, the air in your lungs will expand and can cause your lungs to rupture and kill you. And so we're trained when we go swimming to hold our breath, right? That's like second nature, hold your breath. And you have to overcome years of holding your breath underwater. As you go up, you have to exhale all the way up when you get to the top to make sure you don't blow out your lungs.
I wonder if you can tell when you're starting to get too much pressure in your lungs and you need to exhale. I wonder if there's a feeling or a pain or
Probably
a popping sound.
maybe imminent death. I mean,
Right.
so it reminds me, my dad had the opposite experience when he was in the Navy. He was on aircraft carriers, and they have to jump off tall heights into the water.
Yeah.
So instead of going to a 100-foot water tower in the water with this monsoon lung thing, we should have researched that, and roll up to the top. My dad said one of the most frightening things he had to do in boot camp was they had this like 70-foot or 80-foot high dive. And I don't know about you. I remember as a little kid going up like a 10 or 20-foot high dive. I got to the top and I was so scared. I about peed myself, right? Well, imagine going up to a 70 or 80-foot one, and then they teach you to cross your legs and put your arms over your chest because you hit the water so hard. If you don't do that, your legs could flail out and break. Your arms could get dislocated. So, yeah, I mean, these are the sort of things that these guys went through that you don't even think of. That's kind of scary stuff.
Whenever when I was back in 1995, I was finishing up undergrad, and one of the awesome trips I got to go on was a volcanology field camp, and we went to Hawaii, and we were studying volcanoes and mapping lava flows and doing all this really cool stuff. Well, I was with a buddy of mine, one of my buddies was there with me. His name is Tim Miller, and he was a consummate daredevil. Always, didn't care. He'd jump off cliffs. He would do all this crazy stuff. I would never do that stuff. Anyway, so we're on the Hana Drive in Maui. Okay. Mm-hmm. And there's the 7 pools of the Seven Sisters or something like that. Right. It's a bunch of series of waterfalls. Well, he climbs all the way up to the very top of the cliff, and you're in this big kind of like, I don't know, basin it's full of water. And my buddy James, who I just spoke to tonight on the phone, actually, was out. We're all swimming out there in the water, and there's another kid up there with my friend Tim. And Tim's like gonna jump off this cliff. I mean, it's probably close to 100 feet. It's pretty high up. And he jumps in, and he knows how to do it. You hold your arms close to your chest and put your hands over your face, because if you don't do that, the water can catch your elbows and dislocate your shoulder.
Yep.
And so he yells down at my friend James, how deep is the water? How the hell does he know how deep the water is? So what's James do? Goes under for like 2 seconds, comes up, and goes, it's deep. So anyway, I'm like, oh, this is bad. So anyway, Tim jumps in. Things work out fine. Things are fine. But there's still a teenage kid up there that wants to jump too.
Oh.
Well, he jumps in. He doesn't do it quite right. Dislocates his shoulder.
Yep.
And his dad has to take him, and they go off to the hospital or whatever. But that was the first time I'd really seen up close and personal the dangers of jumping in from really, really big heights like that. And that could really mess you up.
I remember there's a spring out here called Radium Springs on the upper Colorado River. And me and my boys were sitting up there, and people were jumping off this cliff into the Colorado River. And this one guy, they're all drunk, right? This one guy had a beer can in his hand. He jumped off the cliff, and he was taking a drink of beer while he was jumping, trying to get a Kodak moment, and he hit and dislocated his shoulder. And the only 2 things I remember about that is he came up screaming like a sissy, and then that beer can was sitting perfectly upright in the water, and it just floated downstream.
There's your Kodak moment right there.
There you go.
The guy going,
he was
the beer can.
So awesome.
Oh man, stories. So many stories.
All right, so we have 2 clips left. We'll play them back to back, and then we'll chat.
And of course, you mentioned the isotopes that you were studying when you were
At Bethesda there, yeah. Mhm.
And that was a brand new
That was
science.
that was the start of it, yeah. In fact, the Navy was really one of the first people into using radioactive isotopes.
So it's kind of like Buck Rogers type stuff for back in that day.
I remember they were using animals, injecting animals with some of the different, like they were using gallium at the time, and this Commander Manley, his wife had cancer, and they were using it on her too to see if it would help.
Interesting.
But it was an interesting course too, because we had one of the fellows that the instructors was J.J. Pinigen. I remember him. He was I forget what college it was, but he was a PhD out of one of the colleges. He was a real neat guy. But he was leaving after that class to go over to Denmark to study under Niels Bohr.
Oh, wow.
And it was really great.
Wow.
How cool is that, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
the classic names in physics.
yeah,
you know?
Niels Bohr. He's got textbooks and stuff about the structure of the atom and everything he came up with, and this dude's rubbing shoulders with researchers like that. So, anyway, this last clip is his daughter Julie talking a little more about her dad. This is the last clip we have.
He is the reason why I am the way I am today and successful in business, because he always told me I could do it.
And I'm going to tell you something. Julie's considered one of the best surveyors in the business.
That's what I hear. Yes.
So she's very good at what she does.
Let me amplify that, Julie. I hope we get the link to you and you'll end up hearing this at some point in this future episode. But yeah, Julie is an amazing human being, a self-starting businesswoman in a field predominantly dominated by men, where you're out in the field living out of hotels or tents for weeks at a time all over the country, conducting surveys for things that have to be right. Otherwise, our seismic equipment can do very bad things to things like gas pipelines and water wells and dwellings. And not only that, but when she retired, she bought a piece of land in Texas, and now she is taken all this land was heavily grazed when she bought it, and now she's restoring it back to tall grass prairie and has like people out there. She has things where kids can come out there, like a nature center, and learn, what the tall grass prairie can look like. She shows like videos of things where, hey, this is what it was look like when it was grazed, and here's what it looks like now. And you see all these birds and rabbits and deer and stuff running around. So she is one of my favorite people that I've met in life.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean it. I consider it an honor that we had a chance to cross paths, and she had a chance to introduce me to her father in this case, and he's amazing people. And I agree with everything she said. I think, our parents have a role in the sort of things that allow us to what we grow into. And I think her dad helped her here, but I also give her credit for taking all these things that she saw her dad do and doing it herself.
One of the things that, I'll just say in closing, I'd never seen this video. This was my first time seeing the interview. And he impressed the hell out of me just in terms of just his matter-of-fact nature, how he was about things. He's got an awesome radio voice to me, it sounds like. But obviously his intellect, and being able to remember things so well. Of course, this was done, a good 15 years ago. But really an impressive guy. I've never met Julie. Hope I will someday and everything, but this is one of the great things about what we do and what we encourage other people to do out there. Go interview people, because you meet so many fascinating people that may become, the best parts of your lives at some point, So Tony, this was a great interview. Novice questions aside here and there, I thought it was fantastic. So, anyway, I just wanted to thank you for it. This is good stuff. Good research.
We've got a lot of really amazing things coming up. Please listen in. Please check out our website, thewarriornextdoor.com, where all these featured veterans have their own webpage. Yeah. Brian does a fantastic job capturing elements of our podcast and the people we interface with on Facebook. We have a burgeoning YouTube channel. For the love of God, don't judge us on how good that is. Judge us on how good our podcast is and our website and the Facebook page.
It's all good.
No, this was great. So I think we'll sign out. So I'm Tony Lupo.
And I'm Ryan Fairfield.
And thank you for listening to another version or episode of The Warrior Next Door.